Heyo, OmniDogs and OmniKittens. It's OmniDog here with Chat OmniDog, also known as ETL. And we've got a new show where we're going to be talking about Ultimate Spider-Man, the big Michael Bendis run. And Chat OmniDog, how's it going?
I'm very good. I'm excited. People have been clamoring for this show. It's been 20 years in the making. I know that you and I both, people come up on the street saying, when are you two going to do the timely Ultimate Spider-Man show? And so we finally got our shit together and we read the first 7 issues. First time for you, right?
Right.
Second time for me, although it's been, I didn't read it when it was coming out exactly, but I read it fairly close to that. So it's been 18 years for me or so. So this came out in like 2000.
Okay.
Where was the OmniDog? Where were you like collecting wise? And where were you like in life in the year 2000? It was a big year for me.
In 2000, let's see, my daughter was in 4th grade, so I was in full Mr. Mom mode at that point. So I was probably, I didn't really start hardcore getting back into singles until 2008, I would say. But I was collecting graphic novels here and there. I would say I was collecting mostly independent graphic novels, things like 8 Ball and Hate by Peter Bagg. I was sort of on that side.
So were you regularly going to like your comic book shop, or were you kind of out of the regular market at that time?
Let's see, 2000. I was still visiting a comic book store here in Alexandria. Yeah, but I didn't have a huge pull list, not like it became when I discovered Third Eye Comics in 2008 and started going crazy again. So I wasn't aware of the Ultimate Spider-Man run, and I really didn't become aware of it until I joined How We Know Each Other through the Omnibus Collectors Group. And I found out the collected editions, the hardcovers were really hard to find. And of course, that made me want to find them.
Figured you.
Yeah. And then I heard what a great story it was, and I hadn't read it. And then you came up with this idea, well, let's cover something that, that
we want to read.
Yeah.
And haven't read. And you have it all? Do you have all the hardcovers?
I do, yeah.
But you don't have the omnibus that kind of, was it the Barnes & Noble? I can't remember. I just have trade paperbacks.
I have 1 through 3 of the, which I think appear in the omnibus.
Yeah. And
then I have the, sorry to spoil it for you, but Death of Spider-Man omnibus after after volume 12.
You got to put the bar underneath spoilers.
Yeah.
20 years in the 20-year-old spoilers.
Yeah. Comics Guide 101 says he still catches crap from people about saying the Death of Spider-Man Omni, and he's like,
yeah,
it's the name of the Omni. I can't help it.
Yeah, there has to be like a statute of limitations on spoilers in general.
Right.
Yeah, in 2000, the beginning of 2000, I was teaching high school in Nebraska, and then I went to grad school in the summer of 2000 in New York City. So at that time, I was like super into like eBaying, like full runs, and my comic book collection was just getting out of hand. And then moved to New York, I moved to like this tiny, like one bed, like it was a 2-bedroom place, but like it was Columbia housing, and so like I had a little bedroom, so I just literally went with like books, and like so I had put all my collection in stores, and so like for about 2 to 3 years, I just didn't even buy a comic book or even look. And then I went into Midtown Comics, which is a pretty famous New York comic book store, and I found like the Frank Miller. What was the second Batman? the crazy futuristic Batman story.
Strikes Again.
Yeah, Strikes Again, which is, but I know not great, but like it was like front and center, and I think the art is amazing. I still don't really like it, but reading it, but like I think it was, but it really like, and those are like thick books, right? They were like,
Yeah.
and so it wasn't. But so that's when I started getting into trades because I had more bookshelves. And ever since then, I just never bought singles. I only buy trades. So, from about 2004. So then I found out Ultimate Spider. I remember all the Ultimate line. I was super like skeptical of it. This little rewriting, retelling of the Spider-Man, X-Men, Fantastic Four. I was just like too much of a purist for the original runs, and I was like, yeah. And so I really fought it. And then someone at some point told me that you should really, at the very least, check out Spider-Man. It's really good, and maybe I got into other Bendis books. I remember I really loved his Sam and Twitch, which I think was before this. And I read some of his independent crime stuff, and so I kind of knew his name, and it was kind of fascinating that this was his first foray into mainstream comics. And anyway, so then I eventually got it way late, and then I really remembered really liking it. And now let's talk about what you thought when you read the first 7 issues.
Well, as somebody that grew up in the Silver Age, I'm pretty familiar with the whole Spider-Man story, but I liked I liked how they modernized it.
Yeah.
They kept a lot of elements. They kept a lot of elements from the earlier incarnation of him. I liked how they made him good friends with Mary Jane. Ahead of time.
She's kind of a nerd too, They're equals in that.
I like that they kept the wrestling angle in there, where he has to wear the homemade suit to do the wrestling. And I was a little put off by Ponytail Uncle Ben.
I was going to ask about some of the recons. Like, and actually looking at this, I don't want to start wars, but like I don't know how much of a fan I am of the art. Like I love Mark Bagley's the artist through like 100 issues or something. Brian Michael Bendis writes like 200 issues, and like I like flipping through that. Like I actually really like his Spider-Man, but like his faces and like the retcon of Uncle Ben I think the retcon of Aunt May is good because, and again, like I was telling Jess before this, I read like the first issue of the Spider-Man, the intro of him for the 11 pages. And, the Aunt May and Uncle Ben are so old in that it's like the fact that Aunt May wasn't going to die in like about 3 issues was amazing. So at least they're gray haired, but they're younger. But yeah, Uncle Ben's got a ponytail. Flash Thompson's got this weird like Roman, just bowl cut. And I don't love the art of Peter Parker. He's got kind of this 90s like floppy, I don't know, hair. But yeah, so I remember, and I would have always told someone before I reread this that the art is a real plus. And I'm not saying it's a negative. But I don't love his drawing of faces, I guess.
Okay, well, art is completely subjective, and here's what we're talking about. What I enjoy it. Here's Flash Thompson's sort of Roman gladiator.
Yeah, he's the bottom.
You can see Peter's floppy hair and Mary Jane there.
Mary Jane was great, I think. Also, I miss the old Harry Osborn and Norman Osborn. I don't know what they're in the old days. They had those kind of like bumpy hair.
The ropey hair.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was weird hair.
Now they look just in this book they look like normal haired dudes. Oh, this book also I think does good about how it's almost the start of Norman Osborn as the Green Goblin as much as the Peter Parker. So and none of that's in the intro to Spider-Man in the 60s, so it kind of expands the villain and Norman Osborn's company is they're doing genetic testing on the spider, on all kinds of animals, and that's where Peter gets bit. I also thought it was super cheap, and then Peter joins, like, all of a sudden he's a basketball star. It's almost like a Teen Wolf plot line where he becomes like, and he's taking them to state, and there's this, and everyone knows he got bit by a spider, and then all of a sudden there's this scrawny little superhero named Spider-Man with spider powers, and no one's going to put together that Peter Parker, who no longer wears his glasses, is all of a sudden a basketball star, and he's not Spider-Man because he was under a chalkboard.
Yeah.
I was a little bit like, a little tough to believe that the secret identity is going to remain secret in this new world.
Yeah, and but I do like the fact that the great power and great responsibility angle where he flippantly ignores the thief, and the thief ends up killing Uncle Ben.
Yeah, that's all in there.
He realizes that, the error of his ways. So that informs the story to the point where he decides he's going to start really doing good for the better of mankind and stuff.
Yeah. And it takes almost all the same beats, of the original Stan Lee story, and it expands it and adds breath to it. Like the storytelling back then was so much different than the storytelling certainly now, and certainly like 20 years ago. It's just like he doesn't wear a Spider-Man costume until like what, issue 2 or 3.
Yeah.
And he kind of barely gets his powers at the end of issue 1. I also remember, and maybe I read this in an interview or something, it was very controversial that, in the first issue of Ultimate Spider-Man, you don't really have Spider-Man. You still have just Peter Parker. And I think I read an interview with Bendis where he was really nervous when he turned in a script to them because he knew that was going to be a negative, but they went with him, and he kind of said, I want to expand it and we'll, take it slower. Which I think is, just makes for better storytelling. I mean, the compactness of the 60s is so, every issue has the bad guy comes, fights the bad guy, and you get a little bit of character development. And here I feel like you're getting, it just takes its time, and you get a little more character development. I would love to see more of Peter. It still moves quicker than, like I said, there's so much time on Norman Osborn. What did you think of the Green Goblin? He's actually like a monster.
He's like a Green Goblin guy.
He can speak, and he's fireballs. I think he flies. It was kind of tough. I think he was flying at some point. So Norman Osborn shoots himself up with whatever Peter Spider guy, because he wanted to speed up and see what he could do with his own science.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he's like a real goblin. He can't speak. And at the end of the 7 issues, he's lost. We think he's dead in the water. Although I don't know for a fact, but I assume he will be back.
Right. Yeah, and I liked. I enjoyed the fact that they changed it enough to make him like a living Green Goblin guy instead of a guy in a mask.
Yeah.
He's really got it out for Peter Parker, and Peter can't figure out who he is or what he is yet as of this part in the story. And I found this to be a really fun, interesting retelling of the whole origin of him with enough differences to make it fun and original and fresh, but enough, as you said, beats of the hitting the same familiar things to make it comfortable enough that it's still Spider-Man and not some radical departure.
Yeah. It stays super true to the origin story that we're used to. And also, I had this great moment. I can't find it, but this Bendis moment of like where he has the Green Goblin attacks the high school, and then Spider-Man comes swinging in, and then the next page we flip back and it's like a rewind in time, and we see Peter Parker in the high school, leave the high school, come back, and then they just redo the same panel of Spider-Man swinging in, but we know we know how he gets there, and I just thought it seemed very Bendis to me. Like he kind of plays around with the form a little bit, and kind of the first time in the book that he does that, and it worked. It was really cute and a good use of the medium, I thought.
Yeah, that's actually a really good point. Okay, yeah, I can see that. Here, I got it.
Yeah, you found it. You're better.
It's the first part where it's like that.
Great. That's great art. Like I love his Spider-Man.
Yeah, it goes back and then it shows how he got there.
And the exact same panel. Like they just put it in. It's very movie-ish, but it translates very well.
Yeah, that's a good point. That was a really good setup, and it was done really well. And I have to say, I understand what you're saying about, art is subjective. I really enjoyed the art. I'm looking forward to seeing more of it. They always say art is of its time, so I guess this is sort of the year 2000, around that era. Although I don't ever know when the bowl cut was in. It never looked right on Guy Gardner, and it's not looking right on Flash Thompson.
Yeah, and then the floppy Peter Parker and the ponytailed Ben was the worst. Like,
yeah, but yeah, I found this really refreshingly fun.
That's good.
Feel comfortable with the old characters, but with enough new angles in it to make me want to keep reading and find out where it deviated from the past, and what the new parts are going to be, and how he's going to keep it grounded in the parts that we still know.
Yeah, and I think, and also, I don't know when the world went to writing for trade paperbacks, but you can tell this is he's writing 6, 7, 8 issue arcs. Like because it definitely is a hunk. It's a chunk. And a story then, and then the Green Goblin is lost in the water, and then you can just tell issue 8 is going to be the next chapter almost, And and I think it works well, and I think Bendis writes to that kind of story arcs well, like it's this forte.
Right, I agree with that, and that's what we're going to be doing on the show. We're going to be reading story arcs through Ultimate Spider-Man. And just kind of analyzing them, looking at them, seeing how they hold up, seeing how they look to a fresh pair of eyes like mine, see what ETL thinks of them 20 years later.
Eyes.
Yeah. And so, we're just going to sort of hang out with Ultimate Spider-Man, and I've been dying to look for an excuse to read it, and so this seemed like a really good idea. If you'd like to read along with us, we're going to do it once a week, and just read a story arc every week.
Yeah.
And have fun with it.
Yeah, leave comments. Tell me how wrong I am. Enjoy. Yeah, it's basically an excuse for us to read a very classic good. And because the other thing too is like I've not read any of the Miles Morales stuff, and I know you don't really need to read this, but like my mind says like I'd love to read this. And then get into the Miles Morales stuff, which I know is like hundreds of issues away, but like I want to get the base down. And then again, this is a good run. This is very good. I mean,
I agree with that. I'd like to get into Miles too eventually.
Yeah, because I'm also interested to see, and again, Bendis is one of those writers that writes these, 200. Ultimate Spider-Man issues, and I like to see how that happens, or how it changes and how it grows, and see what he does with it, because it is a long run, especially when you get into the Miles Morales stuff. I mean, he wrote 100 of those issues. I don't even know, but lots of stuff. So it's gonna be fun. I'm like I said, I really enjoyed it. I'm excited to read the next run. I kind of just stopped myself from cheating and
That's a good sign.
Yeah. Yeah. So join us. Leave a comment. The Chat OmniDog and Live OmniDog Ultimate Spider-Man show.
Yeah. Please hit the like button, subscribe, and leave your comments. We will answer your comments, and join us on the read through with Ultimate Spider-Man. And for Chat OmniDog and myself, next week I will tell you how he got the nickname Chat OmniDog.
Ooh,
but we'll end on a cliffhanger.
Yeah.
But for Chat OmniDog and myself, I say thank you for watching, and peace and love. Peace and love.
Love. I get to say it live.